Senator Ron Johnson joins us. He sits on the Budget Committee. The Wisconsin Republican is live on Capitol Hill. Senator, a pleasure to talk to you. The Republican side of your committee, the Budget Committee, reportedly did a preliminary analysis and determined the following from the budget. Not 600, but 800 billion in tax increases, 7.3 trillion in new debt, and actual deficit reduction of only 280 billion. Two questions. Is that roughly accurate? And second of all, if it is that unacceptable?
Yeah, I mean, it's not a serious budget. It never provides balance. It doesn't put us on a glide path to actually live within our means. You know, if you take a look at 10-year spending compared to what the House has proposed, it increased spending by about $5 trillion, raised taxes by more than $1 trillion over the CBO baseline in the House budget, and basically increases their deficit by about $4 trillion over the House proposal. You know, and Greg, what you really need to concentrate on in any of these 10-year budgets is the first year. In the first year, President Obama's budget spends $160 billion more than the CBO baseline and increased the deficit by $128 billion more than the CBO baseline. And let's face it, that's really what the president's really proposing, is increasing spending, increasing the deficit in that first year, then extrapolate that for the next 10 years. That's really what his proposal looks like to me. Again, just more increased spending, more increased taxes, and unfortunately, more increased deficits.
But for the very first time, the president is putting in writing here a concession on Social Security to reduce the growth of Social Security by using a different inflation measure for calculating cost of living increase, the so-called chained CPI that gives a lower measure of inflation. Would Republicans, in exchange for that, be willing to agree to some revenue tax increases?
Well, first of all, I think it's helpful the president's putting chain CPI on the table, a more accurate reflection of true inflation. But in terms of doing a deal where you're raising more revenue, Republicans want to raise more revenue through economic growth. And Greg, a couple of figures. Even with the meager economic growth we've had from 2009 to 2012, revenue has increased by $344 billion per year. If we return to a normal economy where revenue generation's like about 18.1%, that add another $435 billion per year. The problem with the president's proposal, it increases taxes. It'll harm economic growth. You know, the fiscal cliff deal is going to raise $41 billion next year. Raising people's taxes is going to harm economic growth, and it'll actually result in less revenue that we can get through growing our economy.
But what if you're only taxing the high income wage earners? For example, the president wants to make those earning more than $1 million have to pay at least 30% of their income in taxes and 28% cap on deductions for high earners. What about that? What's wrong with that? You're only hitting that one small sector.
Yeah, that one small sector is comprised of small to medium-sized businesses that report their business income through the individual tax return. Those are the innovators. Those are the job creators. Those are the people that we really are relying on to grow our economy. So you harm economic growth, and I hope I prove that economic growth is going to be far more effective at really increasing revenue and reducing our deficits than punishing success. And unfortunately, this president doesn't understand that. Listen, I'm glad he's starting to take a look at Social Security, but even chain CPI, Greg, that'll supposedly raise about $230 billion will actually close the gap in Social Security, but over the next 20 years, Social Security is running a cash deficit of $5.1 trillion. So what we need to do is start looking at each one of these problems individually and start solving Social Security, solve Medicare. We need pro-growth tax reform. We actually need to start using our energy resources in this country. So I'm not looking for a grand bargain. I'm looking at addressing these problems by first and foremost going to the American people and describing the true seriousness, the true depth of the problem. That's the first step in reaching solutions. You
know, Senator, some people suspect the president isn't really serious about all of this. Otherwise, he wouldn't be 2 months late in presenting his budget. And already, of course, the White House, especially over the weekend, was condemning Republicans as embracing the my way or the highway approach. Do you worry that the president here is playing politics and all he's really trying to do is set up Republicans for blame with an eye toward the 2014 elections?
Well, obviously, releasing a budget 2 months late is leading from behind, which is not a real good idea. But I tell you what, I'll believe the president is serious about solving these problems when he starts stating publicly what he said privately. For example, he described the problem in Medicare is that Americans pay $1 in and they get $3 out in benefits. That's a huge problem. He further went on to say that Americans don't understand that. So what President Obama needs to do, and here's the first act of bipartisanship, Greg, we need to sit at the table, agree on the depth of the problem, and then the second act is go to the American people together in a bipartisan fashion to accurately describe the depth of the problem. Rather than trying to talk about solutions right now, we need to convince the American public that we've got a real serious problem. And to date, the only thing I've ever heard the president say about Medicare is that we need modest reforms. Listen, when you're paying $1 and getting $3 out in benefits of a $575 billion a year program, that's going to require more than modest reforms. So we need to first be truthful and honest with the American people in a bipartisan fashion. That's the first step. You got to admit you have a problem.
Senator Ron Johnson, thank you so much for taking the time. Appreciate it.
Thanks.